Good morning. Who am I? Who am I? Here we are again, asking the same question day after day, spending the next hour and a half, guaranteed less than 2 hours, not guaranteed less than an hour and a half. Today's the last recording that I will do until I'll probably be back on the air quoting air, back on the air February 29th, because we've got something to do for when I come back. I may mention it. Who am I? Who am I is the question. And I always get myself started by talking about it to myself before I turn the recorder on. But what trips me up, what makes it difficult for me to flow that conversation directly into this one, is the intro part here, where I say, "Good morning and welcome to Radio Who Am I, coming to you from high atop the San Juan, no, whatever. I'm not high atop anything, but I am at elevation. I don't know how to begin this. Who am I? Who am I? This discussion where I'm just going to be human for an hour and a half and speak from, as best as I can, my non-resistant, broader perspective aspect of me who is me, and yet me who is more than me also. Because, as I have maintained in every show, we are a binary system on so many levels. The first binary point at the most fundamental level is you are the formless and the form. What that means is you actually are the Planck field. You are made of Plancks. All of your atomic structure is made of Plancks that have organized into the spin of atomic structure. The the overarching all universe that surrounds you is made of Plancks. It's Plancks spinning into apparition, into manifestation that becomes and becomes and begoes and begoes. By the way, it is in constant motion, constant flux. You are the field behind the form that is you also. So the form that's you, the body that you inhabit, is how the greater part of you experiences itself. And spoiler alert, there's only one of us. Isn't that interesting? The universe is divine, it's beautiful, it's magical, and you are too. It, you, the key to the whole thing is focus and attention, and how you are focusing your as a human being. The way your structure works is you need to be working on focusing um, your emotions, your thoughts and emotions. That's what you're focusing, your thoughts and your emotions, because your thoughts are becoming things and your emotions are telling you what direction you're flying. You are a binary system. If you persist in hard action while in the midst of negative emotion, then you are flying into the wind unnecessarily, by the way. You are paddling up a very strong current, and you aren't going to win, and nothing that you want is up there anyway. You need to let go of the oars, let go and let God, as the religious people would say. There really is a flow going on here. There really is. Faith is a good thing. Now, I would like to sort of clarify how the situation works, so that I was never a big believer in faith as I was growing up, because I could see what people had faith in what I thought was some pretty ridiculous analytical thought. They just completely sidestepped all reason, and they were taught to just believe this nonsense. Doesn't have to make sense to you. Just believe it because we say so. Have faith. And that did not sit well with me. And so I lived always, my life's mantra was don't believe it unless it makes sense to you. Do not believe anything unless it makes sense to you. And there was plenty of things that make sense to me. Add it all up. Just add it all up. Make sense. Make sense actually means add it all up. Add it up. That's how you make sense. Make sense of it. Add it up, and there's an order. There's a natural order to the universe. It conforms in circles. Or a spiral, or its spin is what it is. Spin is what is organizing us all in loving, kind ways if we would but let it. Well-being is raining down around us. We live in a highly organized, beautiful, connected universe that has rules that if you would understand them and follow them, everything that we want, all that we desire, we can have. You just got to understand how you're designed. You're a binary system, and the first level of binary nature is just that you are the quantum field. You are made of Planck's. So you are the formless. You are the I can be anything form. Planck's can be anything, actually. They can mold into anything because virtually all things are made of Planck's. So if you understand how reality comes into being, we can do a lot of things collectively as human beings. First of all, we can get off fossil fuels of all sorts and all of these so-called green energies that are not really all that green at all, and they are all not energy dense enough to satisfy the growing needs of a growing population and the growing desires of this fabulous world that we live in. The false choice is scarcity and austerity and contraction, which isn't even possible. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. We want what we want, and there actually is a way to have all that we want. Source has indeed answered. Remember the steps of creation. Step 1, contrast causes us to ask. Step 2, source answers. Step 3, you gotta get into a place where you can allow an answer to be in existence. There is an answer. There is an answer to this, and the answer is we gotta plug into source energy in more ways than one. Both individually, it will organize our own lives and make us understand our own relationships and how to harmonize and collaborate more peacefully and cooperatively and mutually beneficially with all of the beings that surround us. When we just try to get along with the human paradigm, we run into trouble. And actually, humanity is in a bit of trouble. Although my message is one of hope and peace, I am not naive in my understanding of how wicked human beings can be in their misalignment. I recognize this. We go all the way to Holocaust. We go all the way to Holocaust. And you can't feel safe by saying, oh, that was them. That's not me, that was them. There is no them, people. There is only us. There is only human beings on this planet now. And we are a single morphogenetic field amongst us. And your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. We affect each other. We are a field phenomenon. What I do in my ignorance affects the rest of the field. When I create vast systems over here on this side of the world that completely disregard how nature flows and my own need to have a biological future in order for me to survive, it really isn't possible for us to kill planet Earth and then we all flee and go to planet Mars and recolonize. If we can't make it here, people, we can't make it, because it completely implies a misunderstanding of who we are and how it works. We can get to the place in um, in a civilization that has um, energy systems that plug directly into source energy. We have vehicles that have conquered gravity, and so they can push off the surface of the planet, and we no longer have to coat the planet in asphalt and concrete. We can communicate across the whole planet without any wires. There's all kinds of ways to do it. We do not have to, we don't need fiber optics. We don't need transatlantic cables. We don't need these things. We need to understand the field. We are the field. That's one of the problems. The fact is when you understand fully what the field is, you understand you are the field, and that is uncomfortable for some people. I'm not sure why. It maybe, I don't know. It implies too many things, too much freedom. You know, we really are free. We really are free. There really isn't anyone judging us. There is a great Almighty loving us, guiding us, knowing us, organizing us, but loosely, lovingly, only just showing us the spirits that if we would follow those frequencies, whatever choices we make in those frequencies are blessed and will lead us to things that we dreams that unfold the way we like them to, not nightmares that unfold in hellish ways. We're kind of having a bit of that because we aren't understanding how the focus, how the attention, the thoughts turning to things, the meaning of your emotional guidance system. We're not getting any of that stuff quite yet. And in our misunderstanding, that's why we behave the way we do. Not for any other reason. You can't point to the Nazi or the person on the opposite side of the political spectrum or the person who doesn't belong to your religion or the one who just dropped a bomb on your neighbor or God forbid on you. You can't really even point at them and say, you're the villain. You're the villain because you did that thing. And that thing is bad. Well, the bad thing is kind of Shiva energy. And what happened is we all, in our misunderstanding of who we are and what's going on, allowed this Shiva energy to develop in the quantum field. We are a field phenomenon after all. The villain is actually, um, it's actually polarity. It is the very us and them paradigm that starts sticking into our minds. And it's so obviously true because you turn and look at what their behavior is, but your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. And actually, as any of us create things and systems, because we are also one morphogenetic field and we're trying to connect to each other. So when parts of us are out of alignment, it creates in the whole field a kind of disturbance of some sort. It in reality, it comes in the form of disgruntled people whose needs are not being met, who are feeling the pinch, feeling lack, feeling stress, feeling the threat of not being able to feed your children, for crying out loud. Let's just call it, what it is. how these people are feeling in Gaza, for crying out loud. Of course, of course. And then they come back with whatever they can come back with, while Israel, and I don't mean to, it's not, it's so complex. And every single one of us is part of this field phenomenon. And there is no us and them. And actually, from the paradigm that we're looking at it from, we have created this nightmare of lack in a universe of absolute infinite potential. This morphogenetic field that is quantums, these little Plancks that are just these little frequencies that cohere all kinds of ways, and it's like cosmic Play-Doh. It's this divine plasma. It can be anything, and we have nightmared it into this thing. And what has caused this, this is my thesis. This is basically my thesis. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where the mystical becomes more practical. The reason that this has happened is because of our source of energy. Duh, wouldn't that be just it? Wouldn't that be so simple? Our source of energy that we are fueling our civilization. And the kinds of things we want to do, there's nothing wrong with what we want to do. What human beings like to do. Excuse me. Well, let me outline, first of all, a little rampage of what human beings want. This is what we want. And it's important to go through these things because remember, focus and attention I claimed was so important? Well, you got to focus on what you want. We as human beings have to focus on what we want, both individually. So whatever you want in your life, if you want love, you got to focus on love, on the frequency of love. You've got to find a way to emanate the frequency of that which you want. You can't sit there and emit the frequency of the lack of what you want and expect what you want to come to you. It won't. So you have to be love, and love will, boom, find you, because that which is like unto itself is drawn. But if you emit the frequency of lack and confusion and longing, yearning, abandonment, unworthiness, whatever it is, you will attract to yourself only people who feel exactly the same way, who will resonate with you, who will commiserate with you, who will pat you on the back and say how justified you are in all of your grievances, or whatever. Whoever you are, that's what you attract. So if you want love, if you want whatever you want, you have to be what you want, not what reality is. Reality might be the lack thereof, actually. You don't have enough money. So how do you change that? How do you change that? You got to emit a different frequency. You got to emit a frequency of general well-being. Know that things are always working out for you and for all of us if we would but lean that direction. Look for the signs and let it happen. You know, there's all kinds of spins of organization going on. Some are chaotic, and some are incoherence. And spoiler alert: the ones that are coming from negative emotions are chaotic organizational spins. And you can either be part of those, or you can be part of the ones that are in the constructive spirit, as opposed to the I don't even know how to describe these, but it's what everything is organized by spin, because spin is fundamental. Spin is what all matter is as it comes into being. It's how the Planck field expresses itself in rolling manifestation, in rolling reality, the shape of the atoms and the temperature of things and the velocity and vector direction and all of that. That is all coming from this Planck field coming into spin because of a gradient density between the quantum reality and the cosmological reality. They are both reality, both of them. We are made of the Plancks and anyway, it's black holes all the way up and all the way down. Every black hole, think of it like a fractal integer reflecting in essence all of the rest of it. It's the universe is holographic. I claim that every day. The universe is black holes all the way up, all the way down. The multiverse. You are a separate universe, in a way. You are coming from the center of your very own universe, and you have a lot more control over what happens to you in that universe and how your life unfolds than you may be consciously taking control of. What you have ultimate control of is all that you really need to navigate your way. You have control of your vibrational emission. You are a binary system, right? I have not pulled up the second picture yet. I'm 21 minutes in, almost 22. The second picture is always this one. You're a binary system. You are a binary system. You are two minds. One of you is your source mind. And it has its thing. It's doing its thing. It's in touch with all physicality. It knows where all the Plancks are moving because it's holographic. It's communicating with itself. The plasma, the divine plasma how should we say it? The divine plasma that the divine matrix is made of is aware of itself. It's touching itself. It is in communication with itself. It knows everything. It really does. That myth about, God knows everything. It does. I say it, he, she. I like she. If you have to put a gender to it, I like she because she implies the female side, which is the genesis. The female is the one that produces the next generation. Now, the male is important. I'm not saying the male isn't important. You have to have the male aspect too, or the genesis also doesn't happen. But the female is the nurturer, the oven in which it bakes. So if I had to put a gender to the great power that the Almighty is, the oneness, the glue that holds us together, it's kind of that which connects us all. It isn't an anthropomorphic entity in the sense that it's like something other than you that sits over there in its dour judgment of us all with its gray beard a wagging. It's not like that kind of a consciousness. It's something that it's like, I like the word Almighty because it's been used to refer to this, but it literally is true. It's the power of the allness, the power of the holographic nature of the universe itself. Nothing is left out, and you aren't left out. And we are all divinely here, and you can't subtract any of us from the equation. Yes, you can focus elsewhere, and you can focus on positive aspects, and you can know that in a broader way, you can have general faith that everything is working out. But you can't actually subtract the rascals from the picture because there they are, acting up. And the meaning of the whole thing is it's a field phenomenon. And this is the third time I've said it, I'm not getting senile. Your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. We are all in this together. We are one. We don't have to act like one. As a matter of fact, the best way to do this is to know that we are one, everyone plug into their own individual source, and then iterate their version of the allness authentically from where they are, creating a vast, strong network of incredible, blessed diversity. What you don't want is lockstep and groupthink. The ultimate example of that is North Korea. You really don't want the planet to be all that. That's not the world I'm looking for. The world I'm looking for is a world where every single individual is free, absolutely free, to call their own path. And all of us have a general understanding of alignment and an agreement that alignment is a good thing and that we will help and aid and assist one another to each of our alignment, soothe one another into our alignment. You cannot punish each other into alignment. That's like, the old adage, or I don't know what this is, the old saying that's just supposed to illustrate how stupid this is. And the beatings will continue until morale improves. The fact is that morale will never improve while people are being beaten and punished, and vengeance, and we're looking around at each other trying to see who's picking up the Shiva energy. It's all of us. And this brings me to one of the main points of my thesis, which is that we can get off of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is the problem. Our carbon footprint is coming from fossil fuels. The idea that we have to stay on fossil fuels is a falseness. It's a false paradigm. We have been sold this bill of goods for over 100 years by no less than all of the people who own and are perpetuating all of the structure in place that is piping and refining and it's not transporting this foul fuel all over the planet. And then our feeble attempts to get off of it by solar panels, which, by the way, have been artificially kept less efficient than they could be. All things that have been powerfully efficient or really hopeful in over unity devices of all sorts have been ruthlessly suppressed over the last 100 years. We do not live in a free market. Our press is not a free press. You are not hearing the truth about what's going on. And I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist. This is just sort of a natural field thing that's been happening. And what has been allowing it to happen is us not knowing who we are. If the consciousness had been there 100 years, 100 years ago, they could never have done this to us. And now, if we would raise our consciousness so that we did understand this source energy and understand it within ourselves and understand it collectively as a group, and then understand its implications to reality and to our technological future and our ability to live sustainably and successfully into the future on planet Earth. When we understand that, no one can keep it from us. No one can keep our future from us. You don't need to push back. You don't need to push against. As a matter of fact, we need, right now, to avoid massive disruption, we need the current system to stay in place to some level for just a little bit longer while we transition. But we need to have the intention of transition transitioning. We need to know that transition is possible. We need to know that right now we are poised in a moment where we are all sitting as potential cooperative components to each other's collaboration in a magnificent, magnificent way. You know, where the people who create imagery and the people who uh, um, have ideas, uh, we could. The problem is the present energy paradigm is what has facilitated the massive move to centralized power structures. That's what we need to get away from, is the centralized power structures. As we begin to develop this technology that allows any home to be a power structure of sorts, using a solid state, no moving parts device that taps them directly into the quantum field. Now, all of a sudden, we can decentralize. And we can just kind of, you decentralize gently, and then you still play nice with all of the stuff that's still kind of centralized as we all sort of disengage little by little. What's going to end up is not every single being in it for themselves. It's not going to be all every man for himself now that we can all, but it'll be small and large, smaller and larger small clusters of social structures of human beings, each with their own flavors and colors and textures, sort of like the ethnic diversity that you've got now. You'll still have that, but you won't need the national power structures in order for human beings to be able to produce the things that they need, which is stuff like food, clothing, shelter. Food, clothing, shelter, and beyond that, communication, transportation, all the things we want. We want to connect with each other. We love doing that. We love playing with each other. We love visiting each other. We love, that's why so much of the world's economy rides on us flowing around the world amongst ourselves. You know, I myself am getting ready to go on a journey, very exciting, a journey of a lifetime. People say that all the time, but all of our trips to Hawaii and even our trip to Tahiti wasn't exactly a trip of a lifetime. This one's a little bit longer, so maybe it is, and we're going to be on the other side of the planet. Well, human beings love to do that, and I can imagine a world where we've taken up the asphalt and the concrete for the most part. We still have cart paths and pony paths and things down on the surface of the planet because it is fun to move around locally, but you don't need those vast intercontinental uh, freeway systems made of concrete that have to be maintained all the time, and this centralized agreement about doing that. It's just not natural. This is not natural. And the only reason that we're being this way is because we're on fossil fuels, and we don't need to be. And right now, while we have factories that can do it, and we have a fair amount of peace all over this planet, we have machine shops and all kinds of manufacture capabilities in all parts of the world. We need to open source all this information and get this information to all the world. We can plug into source energy. Know what this source energy is. Know who you are. Know that you are source energy too. By the way, that is my cry unto the people. So, how are we designed? We are these two minds. These two minds, the one on the left, the wide open aperture, think of this as your source energy mind. The one on the right, that is you, your specific mind. Your in your meat body, brains in the skull mind. That's that one, specifically looking through your eyes at the world around you and experiencing things. That's your two selves. Fundamentally, you are the formless and the form. Then you come to your source mind. You are two minds. They are thinking thoughts. Well, you know what you're thinking most of the time, right? And sometimes your mind is plaguing you. It's your monkey mind. You can't get it to shut off. You can't get it to. It's out of alignment with who you really are. Maybe you don't know that who you really are is eternal. Who you really are is your source side. You are made of these plunks that are here forever, that are gently morphing, becoming more consciousness, more connected, more understanding with both you individually and with you as the group, because there really is only one of us here. There is only one of us here. So what is your source mind looking at? Your source mind is knowing everything that is, all the physicality all around you. What it's looking at, which is different than knowing, it's knowing everything. It's looking at, from your perspective, what is it looking at? Because it's all perspective. Each and every one of us is shining a light on a perspective of the whole, which is all of our lights shining on all of the places added together. That's what the whole thing is. And every one of us is that a little piece of the light, and we all have access in a way to all the information of the whole too. So I mean, you can imagine all of everyone else's piece. You can let their light into your picture. When they tell you what they're looking at, you can light up a piece of your own picture. And you do that enough, and you start seeing the grandness of the whole. It really is quite divine, and you can't subtract any of it. Anyway, so what is your source? What is your source side looking at? Your source side is looking at what you love. Everything that you love, everything that you like, everything that you prefer, everything that you want. It's that impulse of desire moving you forward. It's that's who your inner being is. It's that energy side of you, and it's connected to all things. It's not just a casual, selfish thing. It is connected to all things, and the meaning of its impulses are profound. And it's advisable for you, for us, for me as an individual, to pay attention to this guidance. Its guidance is peaceful and loving and kind and connected, and it feels good, it feels good, it feels good. If you are not feeling that feel good, then that's not the right frequency. You're on a different frequency. And there's all kinds of frequencies that you can be on. We are transmitters and receivers, both. And actually, the frequency that you're receiving on is the same frequency that you're transmitting on. So it's really important that you transmit. That's what you have control over. You have control over your transmission. And that transmission has a great deal of control over what comes to you. Whether it's blessed, whether it's cursed, whether it's chaotic, whether it's what you want, whether it's jarring, whether it's painful, whether it's fun, whether you can feel the vibrations of thoughts, you can feel the vibrations of things. You need to put it into your system and feel all these vibrations for yourself. I remember there was a time in my life, I'm a sensitive person. There was a time in my life where a lot of my feelings I turned off because I just could not handle it. I am such an animal lover, and I just love our natural landscapes and the little creatures and it just makes, that's what I love. And all the news about, what human beings were doing to the planet. I just couldn't look that way. I couldn't hardly look. I couldn't face a nature show showing anything, uh, uh, showing animals or landscapes or any of the things that I love, because right there in the back of my mind was saying, but we're killing it and there's no way out. But we're killing it and there's no way out. And so I can't love it because it's just, I can't look at those polar bears because they're drowning. I can't look at those walruses because they don't have the ice flows they used to have anymore. I can't look at, if I love it, it's those elephants, blah, blah. You get my idea. I couldn't. I turned it off. But you don't have to turn it off, because actually there's a way to look at everything, even the troubles. Because the troubles that we are experiencing, they're temporary for one thing, and they're caused by something that you can understand what's causing it. And so if you understand what's causing it, then you can kind of understand how to fix it. And as an individual, you could first of all know that you are not responsible for the whole thing. And so everyone is attracting the reality that they are getting, and you can't get far enough into anything to affect that experience that somebody is producing for themselves on the other side of the world in any other way than this. And that is, know that you are the field. And as the field, you have an effect on the field, but not physically. You can't physically reach over there across the other side of the world and keep those elephants from dying or whatever. And if you try to do that, especially, you're likely doing it from a negative impetus, and you're only going to cause more disruption in the field. You unknowingly are also picking up Shiva energy and trying to wield it, trying to make things better, but you're not understanding the system, and like that. So what's the answer? Man your own equipment. Simply. The only responsibility that you do not have a responsibility to anyone directly other than yourself. However, now I don't want anybody taking that out of context, because when you are truly in touch with yourself, your true self is in touch with all things. The win that you are looking for is the win point. Because unbeknownst to us, there really is one. We were taught that the paradigm that we live in, and because we were taught this, and because we have believed this, and because we have assumed this as our primary assumptions, we have kind of made it to be true in the real world. It's sort of like we have nightmared it into being, right? Because this process that we're doing is sort of more like dreaming than we think that it is. This focusing of our thought and our feeling is more a dreaming process, but we got to dream it into being, not nightmare it into being, right? By paying attention to how we feel, it's our feelings that are leading us into scenes that we either find pleasant or unpleasant. So we were taught that the paradigm that we exist in is one of, let's see, I got it written down here. One of competition, that it's a zero-sum game, that there's winners and losers. I win, you lose. And he who dies with the most toys wins. That kind of a paradigm. There's a finite pie. There's X number of us, and that means that the more of us that there are, the less pie there is for every one of us. The more pie that you take, the less pie there is for me. That's the paradigm that we have been taught that we live in, and we don't live in that paradigm. The paradigm that we live in is actually quite different. It's one of cooperation, infinite potential, infinite pie, infinite expanding pie. It's expanding by way of our desires. The more pie you want, the more pie there is. If you've got the paradigm set up right. It's a paradigm of abundance. The actual winning position is not win-lose, but win, 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 win. The he who is the most cooperative wins, not he who has the most toys. When you input that second paradigm up into your fundamental primary assumptions, the object of the exercise plays out much different. Much, 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 much different. And your source self, being connected to all things, being an organizer of all things from the primordial spin that we all spun out of, and so it knows where all the layers of it's all spins coming out of the one spin. On the one hand, reality is an infinitude of individuated spins, each of them autonomous, and yet all of them coming out of the same original spin, somehow in a mystical way. I don't know how that really works. But the mathematics of this has been done. This is not just pie in the sky. This actually is, I'm going to embed, as always, in the description of my video, a link to the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. That will give you a sense of whether you're ready to accept all of its graphic descriptions of everything or not. It is a true documentary of the history of the over-unity devices that have been ruthlessly suppressed across this planet for the last 100 years by the folks, all of the folks. And, you know, it's like a hydra. You can't just, that's the villain, cut that down, but it'll just appear 10 times worse. You've got to understand the phenomenon before you can make the villain at the top of the tower go away. So I'm not pushing back directly against Exxon or the Koch brothers or whatever, but this propensity for a centralized power to even be there is because of the energy paradigm that we have chosen. And it's ridiculous. There's no way that this energy paradigm could possibly fuel a 22nd century humanity. We'll be living on Dune by that time. And if you imagine that we're going to vacate and, you know, make it to Mars and, you know, raise potatoes with our poop or whatever, that's a reference to the movie The Martian, of course. If we can't make it here, then we can't make it on Mars because we got this great head start going here. We don't have that head start there. And if we can't do it here, then we're not understanding. We're not understanding who we are. We're not understanding source energy. We're not understanding how the great Almighty is trying to organize us coherently. Think of the another way of thinking of our binary self is the reality is sort of chaos and coherence. Chaos and coherence. And you have these storms of chaos, which could be thought of as wars, insurrections, riots, all number of tantrums, you know. They're little storms of chaotic energy. And then there's coherent energy. And when you get into coherence with your inner being, when you link your head and your heart to one another, and then look at all things. First of all, as soon as we get off of fossil fuels and onto source energy, there's going to be plenty of energy. Right now, the petrodollar is an expression of scarcity upon planet Earth. That's why there's not enough. There's plenty of people and lots of will to do all things. And anything that needed to be done, if we could clearly see it, we could just turn and move and do it. But the problem is that with the scarcity of the dollar being based on the currency standard, what an energy stocks or the petrodollar, it's it used to be the gold standard, but now it is an expression of a person's ability to plug into the common energy field that is humanity, that is producing goods and producing food and producing housing and clothing and transportation, and we are a group being. This need to plug in as a group is being driven by this paradigm of scarcity. It's becoming less and less possible for previously self-sufficient groups to. The answer is plug into source energy. This is what will. The answer is not go back to an agrarian past to limit the population by drastic means. The answer is to get into alignment. Quit looking at the hard reality we've got. We've nightmared that into place, and start focusing upon the reality that we want. And that reality is what we want is freedom, abundance, joy, meaning, clarity, security, safety, warmth, and energy. We want that. We do not have to contract our desires. We can be joyfully who we are and dance into the 22nd century, but we have to have a different source of energy. And as soon as we have the different source of energy, we can clean up all the mess we've made because we have the technologies. We can desalinate ocean water and rebloom the deserts. We can grow food where previously it was hard to grow food or impossible to grow food. We can recycle all the garbage both in the ocean and on the land that we have created. We can easily do it. We just need the energy to do it. The reason that it doesn't make sense so much to do it now is you do it now with the energy that we've got, and you clean up one bit of filth with the one hand, and you create this enormous amount of filth with the other hand. You can't get ahead of it. You need a clean, free, unlimited energy source, and then you can do anything. You can re-sequester dangerous greenhouse gases back into the earth. We are experiencing a cyclical, natural global warming event. It is true. But our behavior on planet Earth is also exacerbating it, and our slashing of the biodiversity around the planet is inhibiting our ability to spring back or to adapt easily and effectively to the changing climate. So people who are arguing about climate change, whether it's human caused or not, it's both. It's the sixth mass extinction. Don't worry about climate change. Screw climate change. Let's talk about the sixth mass extinction on planet Earth. As our behavior is killing most of the rest of the living field, which, by the way, we can't survive without. And all of those post-apocalyptic nightmare scenario sci-fi movies will attest to. We can't. And so the answer is quite simple. As individuals, and individually, this is all that you're responsible for. Get into alignment with yourself and follow wherever your heart. Follow your heart. Follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. You have to follow your desire. You have to get your head and your heart in the same vicinity. Start learning how to follow it. Know that in the long run, it's not the win-lose position you're looking for. You're not looking for the win in a world of lose. You're looking for the win-win. You're looking for the cooperation. Those at the top collaborate. Those at the bottom compete. You want to be at the top, collaborating with more and more and more for all of our dreams to come true. For the better that we do, the better we all do, the better we all do, right? So my thesis also has. So I've claimed that I don't know where to go with this. Get into alignment. Get into alignment. I always say that. Let's go through all of these. Pay attention to how you feel. Your inner being feels good. Oh, I keep coming right up to this point and I don't quite finish it. What's your inner being looking at? She's looking at what you want. Maybe I did say this. She's looking at what you want. What are you looking at? Are you transfixed by the apparition of the manifestation of that which you do not want? Or is that what has got your attention, the focus of your attention? Are you staring at something and you're transfixed by something and it is negative and it's putting you into negative thoughts? Of course you don't like it. Who would? And I can't quit staring at it. Law of attraction will do that to you. You start on a frequency and law of attraction will start handing you more on that same frequency. So if it is your habit to get into negative momentums, angry, jags, putting together all the thoughts, all the grievances, yeah, look, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. You can start attracting not only more thoughts that will confirm that you are indeed correct. Those people are all misbehaving. You'll start resonating with and banding together with other people who are noticing the same apparition in the field. They're noticing the same phenomenon. Look at this, and they think it's terrible. It's terrible. Every rat hole is bottomless, people. And while I'm not going to argue with you about the fact that what you're looking at is unpleasant, it's absolutely true. Wouldn't argue with any, you're all right. Everybody's right. Everybody's right. But what you're not necessarily right about is an understanding of how to fix that. How to fix that is not how to run straight at it in a negative state, or, as they would say, with your hair on fire. Don't run straight at the condition with your hair on fire and expect to positively affect that condition. It just doesn't work that way. It looks like it ought to work that way, but that's a mirage. That's part of the meaning of growing up and understanding mythology. Oh, that's how it works. I see. So, how does it work? You got to get into alignment with your own inner being. You got to get okay with being in your own skin, no matter what is going on. It's like that. I thank you for joy. No, I thank you for sun. Thank you for rain. Thank you for joy. Thank you for pain. It's a beautiful day. Be grateful. Be grateful to be here, to be in your. Don't take it so seriously, because no matter what happens, your baseline position is you're absolutely safe. You are absolutely safe. You are connected. You are one with an entirety, an integral, integer wholeness of a universe. That you are a little integral wholeness within. And the Almighty knows where you are, knows what you're doing, knows what you care about, and is trying to guide you to said same. How does it do that? You got to pay attention to how you feel. You've got to care about how you feel more than you care about the condition out there. Now, I know that sounds off, because of course you care about the condition out there. I'm air quoting the word condition, because that condition is actually things like people that you love. And of course you care about those people that you love. but you got to care about how you feel. You got to care about yourself. You got to know that you yourself are divine and blessed and part of this holographic wholeness too, and that your perspective of self and through self and by self is all you have. You can't observe the world other than through the lens of yourself. So you can't be flogging yourself and hating yourself and doubting yourself and contradicting yourself. It's the energetic equivalent of zapping yourself in the solar plexus with a cattle prod. You've got to stop doing that. You've got to know your own worthiness. So there's who you are and then what you're being. Now, you can question what you're being. That's okay. And as a matter of fact, if you're not happy with how things are going and how you're feeling, I would suggest that you do question how you're being. But don't question who you are, because who you are is part of the field. And we are a field phenomenon, and we are all in this together. On the one hand, we are all in this together. Know that. That is a ground state. No one can take that away from you. No one can take that away from us. We are all in this together. However, you are also divinely autonomous. You are your own spin. You control the center of your own spin. And you can develop a momentum within that spin of whatever you want to get going, whatever you want to focus on and make happen. It's kind of what human beings do. We call it specialization, where each one of us takes a particular, very specific aspect of the wholeness of reality and focuses in on it and gets really good at understanding that one thing. And then collectively, we have systems that tag that information back into the rest of us, so that you're having studied genetics, or you're having studied engineering, or you over there having studied economics, or whatever, serves us all as a group as we come back collectively and offer our specific specialty, our expertise back to the group. That's the way we're designed. Now, I always had a kind of a hard time doing that because I distrusted the coherence of the group. I didn't think that as a group that we were in alignment, and so I didn't want to go off and get specialized for the group. So it turns out my specialty is something else. It's understanding this. This is what my heart and impulses and my bliss have led me to look at and understand, because I find this interesting and I think it will be helpful on a practical level to us as a group, as well as on a practical level to any of us as individuals. Because we are both all in this together, but you can only man your own wheel. You can't be in anybody else's business, even though you want to be. We've got these mirror neurons in our brains that cause us they fire whenever we observe anybody else doing things. And so it's hard for us to get out of each other's business, because what you do is firing in my brain, you know? But on the other hand, you're not responsible to my brain. And if you would get into alignment with your own inner being, she would help you navigate this. She would help you navigate this. You got to care how you feel, and you've got to catch your bad feelings very early. Very early. Don't let your thoughts get carried away in a negative state. Don't let your anger it feels so good to scratch that angry itch, doesn't it? You're pissed off at somebody, because you feel threatened about something, and doesn't it just feel good to just rip them a new one? Well, you may say it feels good. Sometimes it does kind of feel good, but it doesn't feel good compared to really feeling good. And it doesn't really produce I always think of Carrie Underwood and that song that she does about Before He Cheats, or whatever that song is, where she does this thing about all the stuff that she does to his pretty car, his four-wheel drive truck, what she does to it. And I'm just minded of all the lawsuits, all the trouble she got herself into when she did that. Now, she might have been justified in a way, and you might understand where that came from, and you sympathize with her. But man, when you feel like that, don't get out your Louisville Slugger. Sit on your hands until you feel better. Not to get specific about anything, but you got to care about how you feel. And this is the scale. It's like an electromagnetic field. This is it's telling you about resonant frequencies that your specific self is taking. So your inner being, remember, we're back to this picture, tired old picture. Somebody's going to help me with a better picture someday. This one right here, where your source mind knows everything that physically is and has her eye on, she's looking in the direction of what you want. She's looking in that direction. It's kind of like a field of light that she's transmitting forward. And anywhere in that lighted space, if you would cast your thoughts, they would be lighted. If you would cast your feet, the path would open up to you. You have to line up what your inner being knows that you want, because you've been declaring for centuries, for millennia, for eons, I can't even tell you how long you've been asking for what you prefer. And what do you prefer? It's feelings of freedom, abundance, joy, fun, meaning, clarity, security, safety. I should say safety and security. It sounds better than security, safety. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men, energy. Those are all the things we want, in general. And then it's our specific job as our specific mind to, within that field of what we want, figure out what that means in physicality. And how do you do that? Because you're working with systems in place on the ground right now, systems of farming and systems of education and systems of communication and systems of energy and systems of blah, 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 amusement. But we live in a really amazing time right now. It used to be, in the olden days, you could produce a good or a service in some way, or actually everything falls under goods or services, because the services who move goods around are services. Communication is a service. It's either a good or a service, and that's what you could provide. Or an entertainment. And it turns out, because the currency of the universe is attention, it's focus and attention. That's what the actual most fundamental currency of the universe is, because it's all mental, it's all consciousness, linking up with itself in these different layers of awareness, these broader and broader fields of coherency. And it's like Nassim Haramein said, when you integrate yourself as a biological being, you connect with the morphogenetic field of the planet. When you integrate yourself at the atomic level, you connect with the solar system. At the level of the proton, you integrate with the galaxy. And when you get all the way down to the Planck, you integrate with the whole universe. And it's just you and your consciousness clicking into these layers of data streams that are flowing across the scales of the universe. And it's universes flinging off little Plancks through Hawking radiation into lesser densities, causing more big bangs to pop. We live in a really cool setup, a really cool system. And as a human being, yeah, we're cursed in a way because we have this ability to disconnect from our source that is just, it's destructive, that we are so able to disconnect from source. However, when we get it, when we understand who we are and what we're actually capable of, we're going to be able to turn this puppy around. And I, for one, am really, really looking forward to it. And it's not in terms of pushing against or resisting or toppling present paradigms. It's just turn and start understanding source energy, all of us. Who am I? Who am I? Line myself up with my inner being and follow my bliss to my happily ever after. And my highest, highest happily ever after that I can reach for is one that actually meets a win point with all of the rest of biology, with all of the rest of the universe. That is my faith. That is my belief. I absolutely do believe that that is the paradigm that we live in, and that we need to shift our fundamental, our primary assumptions about the object of the exercise. Is the object of the exercise he who dies with the most toys wins? Or is it he who cooperates with the most beings to the highest benefit of all of us, to the highest joy and fun and benefit and entertainment of us all? That's the one who wins. How about that? How about that as the object of the exercise? So I'm going to talk about our design here coming up, and we're going to show some more slides. I've been kind of just giving a fundamental start to my thesis, to my what I the dots that I am trying to connect. So I'm going to pivot for just a second. It's not really a pivot. I'm just going to talk about the design of the human being for just a minute now. We've been talking about, source energy and stuff in general. Now we're just going to talk about the design of the human being. I do this every day. It's part of the presentation. So, as you became a human, as you developed, as you evolved, you didn't cash in, you didn't turn in your previous minds, you just layered onto them. You got more and more layers of understanding and awareness were layered on top of the original. So your lizard brain, when you were a lizard, that was the part of it. I'm not sure what part of this brain this is. The thalamus, the amygdala. I have no idea what it is. I just said one of those two words at least was stupid, if not both of them. It doesn't matter. Your lizard brain is that, it looks like that, and it's the bottom of your skull, and it controls those aspects of your awareness in your life. As a mammal, when you became a mammal, when you were a lizard, you could just, or a snake, when you were a reptile, you lay your eggs and run, and you don't have to look at the world the same way. But when you're a mammal and you give birth to something that now needs you to help it, needs very, very much for you to help it, in order for it to survive and to grow into probably greater complexity, is why this would be an advantage. You can teach this creature a lot more, and so their behavior can be a lot more complex and not just reactive. But you need a consciousness that is now focused in a different way, focused on something outside of yourself, and not just focused on it, caring about it, willing to put your own safety on the line for it now. That's because you're a mammal, and some negative emotions, some feelings of threat, certainly feelings of love, that feeling of attachment to your baby, that is love. And I'll tell you what, all mothers feel that way. Don't kid yourself. The animal kingdom feels love. Now, they may not have as much of the picture on the right, the neocortex, that's the layer of mind that makes you uniquely human. Now, there may be some, smaller levels of this on some other creatures that we suspect of being at least as smart as us, and they might be smarter because they are completely um, tagged into source energy. We have something. We're both blessed and cursed, but this neocortex gives us sort of an overview mind: logic and analysis, rational thought, control of emotions, language, and morality, right? The interesting part about this, and the reason I bring it up, well, it's interesting. For one thing, it kind of tells you about consciousness, but 76% of the volume of the neocortex comes from a very interesting place. It comes from human chromosome number 2, and human chromosome 2 is is a fused chromosome. Turns out it was studied back in 1991. These geneticists published this publication. As far as I know, they didn't have an agenda. I'm not sure they did anything with this, but they studied it, and after studying it, they determined that what they're looking at with the telomere matter in the center of this and the sequences of the cosmids and the whatever on both sides of this telomere, the telomere thing, what they conclude is that this is the full abstract. We conclude that this is the relic of an ancient telomere to telomere fusion and marks the point at which two ancestral ape chromosomes fused to give rise to human chromosome number 2. Well, I find that actually quite startling. If you know a little bit about the genetics that they're talking about, as you read the article, what you realize is what they're describing is that not only the did were these two chromosomes fused at the telomeres, which are outside by their very nature. It's an unnatural thing for telomeres to stick to telomeres. That's just not the way it works. But more than that, on both sides of the fusion, redundancies within the two chromosomes were clipped away, which stabilized that fusion. And on top of that, it fortuitously created the neocortex of the human being and took us from, if as these people put it, from being apes to being humans. This is the missing link. Arguably. Now, I am not going to push this point because I am not a geneticist, but it clicks into a lot of other things that make sense to me. It makes sense to me, and I do believe that we have had extraterrestrial contact on this planet Earth from the beginning. I don't think that I think that all of the archaeological evidence is kind of pointing to way more than just shepherds turned into pyramid builders naturally, without any help from the outside kind of Earth history. I don't think that that's really how it went. So I also believe that the phenomenon of UFOs in general is still trying to be kept as a general secret, because if we would all believe it and have access to visual information of what these vehicles are doing, their very existence is implying a source of energy and an understanding of gravity that we do not commonly acknowledge. Now, it is possible that our black ops side of ourselves does have this knowledge, but it needs to not just be on the black ops side, it needs to be out in the sunlight, and all of humanity needs to have this information. All of humanity needs to have this ability to plug into their own energy source. Now, at first, it might make your ability to cause someone else to come and slave their labor for you less, because they don't need to. They can take their own energy source and go off into the woods somewhere and grow food and make goods for themselves. They can. I don't want to digress. It's early. In any case, the whole point is, I don't know where this came from. I don't know whether this was an accident. It doesn't seem very likely to me that this was an accident. I think that this is evidence that we're genetically modified. And I don't think that these people that wrote this article, I don't think they had an agenda. They weren't trying to prove anything about extraterrestrials. I don't believe. I have never heard their names or any of this attached to that. I was alerted to this piece of information by Greg Braden, who talks about it in his conferences. Although he doesn't ever baldly say right out genetically modified, you know, he implies it. He's more coy about it. He doesn't want to be caught right out. Maybe because he's afraid that somebody will just take that out of context and then use it as a smear tactic to discredit him from the more conventional world. I don't have any such reputation to protect. I do believe that this implies that we were genetically modified. And then the question arises there, why? Are we a beloved formula? Are we an experiment? Are we their children? Are we their servants, their slaves, their teachers? Were we what who did this to us, and why did they do this, and how did they see us, and how much did they understand about source energy and who we are? You know, how does that work? I believe that some understanding of the morphogenetic oneness of us all is required to be able to hit the true data levels that allow you entry into the intergalactic community. That as long as you are in a state of high chaos, as humanity on planet Earth is now, that you are not allowed outside of your solar system. The knowledge itself prevents you. You know, we're never going to get there using fossil fuel based or any other kind of fuel burning thrust based rocketry. This is not understanding the true nature of gravity and the true nature of the universe. Now, from that, I'm going to pivot to my other piece of my thesis, which has to do with my maintaining that the math has been done. The roadmap has been laid. We do understand where reality comes from and the nature of gravity. The origin of mass, that's what I'm calling reality, air quote reality. Reality, if you want to talk about reality as being the state of physical manifestation at any given moment, right? So where is mass coming from? Where is the expression of reality? Where does it come from? And gravity, how does gravity fit in there? How are all the forces related? How do you relate the quantum to the cosmological? The conventional world pretends like this math has not been done, but it has been done. The thing is the implication to the future of energy is so profound that you're going to see that there is some resistance to even believing that this is possible. So I've captured some slides from the 37-minute YouTube description of this physics paper that is basically describing mathematically, and it unifies all the forces, explains all the dark matter, describes the holographic nature, shows the connection between the Planck field of every proton and all of the protons and all of the mass of all of the universe mathematically, shows how this all plays together. This mathematical roadmap will lead human beings to collectively, not just the dark ops operation of our centrally based government system, not just those people. They aren't the only ones who are going to understand how to tap into gravity control, and I actually believe that you really have to understand something profound if you really are going to get an understanding of this mathematics. So I captured these slides. I'm also putting a link to this video, 37-minute YouTube video describing mathematically the physics of how mass appears and the nature of gravity and how everything's black holes all the way up, the quantum nature of space-time, the pixelization of space-time, how when these Planck oscillators come across the event horizon of the zero-point energy field as matter, they are spinning. Spin is baked into the cake. It's fundamental. And an understanding of this and the mathematical ramifications flowing from that understanding brings us to a better understanding of gravity and how to conquer it. Anyway, I just did this for people who, it's a very technical paper. I would suggest you click on it and just look at it, and your jaw will drop and you'll go, whoa, that sounds smart. I do believe that it's not just psychobabble. I think I generally kind of understand what they're trying to say. And they claim that this is a mathematical proof of what I think I'm visualizing they mean as they describe the nature of this Planck field and how it works, how it goes into spin, and the meaning of the different densities of the quantum and the cosmological and all that. The relationship between the Planck field of every proton and all of the protons of all of the universe. That's what this slide is. Anyway, you might ask yourself, I've been talking about these Plancks all day today, and in other presentations I talk about Plancks too, and I've described them before, but I haven't today. What's a Planck? What's a Planck? It's a frequency. It's a tiny, as tiny as you can imagine kind of frequency. And the way you imagine it is it's a photon, which is a packet of light going at the speed of light, because that's what photons do, and crosses its own diameter. So it's something very small, going very fast, going a very short distance. And that is a Planck. And the whole universe is made of this Planck plasma. So the field around you that appears to be empty is just that Planck plasma that hasn't organized into any specific spin. Anything that you can see as appearance is little vortices of this Planck field going into different spins. It's the mass at the center of every atom is a vortex of Planck's spinning. So, and then there's all the effects and all the forces that emerge from that basic understanding. That's what everything is made of. That's what source energy is. Source energy is this Planck field jiggling with itself, everything interacting with everything all the time. This cosmic interference pattern transmitting all the information of all of it across all the scales. And there's all kinds of different um, mechanisms for screening as this data is flowing across the scales. The data, what's the data? The data is everything that's going on now, as it moves, as it flows. What's we just live in the coolest universe. And I know we've got problems. We've got terrible problems. Sixth mass extinction, expanding deserts, garbage island, war, authoritarian psychosis within the political arena, um, in the psyches of human beings. It's we're amazing and wonderful, and we're horrible and destructive, and we're kind and we're divine, and we're wicked and cruel, and it all can be understood if you understand who we are. Who we are as a Planck field to begin with. You are the quantum field, which means at a very fundamental level, you are both intimately and inextricably connected to all things, and at the same time, absolutely safe. Safe. You are the field that can become anything you want to become. And so the idea, the secret there is the want, the word want. Anything you want. You have to get in touch with what you want. That's what your inner being is looking at what you want. You may have given up on it. There is no justice. There is no safety. There is no peace. There is no happiness. Because look at all of this horror that we are creating. Well, we are creating it because we don't understand how we are dreaming it into being. And we have to pay attention to how we feel, because when we feel bad and then start creating from that level of impulse, all of our ideas are skewed. They're all bad. Have you noticed that when you're balled up in negative emotion, all your ideas are poor ones? And when you are in a state of eager anticipation, loving, kind, hopeful, interested, uh, feeling good about yourself and others, when you are in that frame of mind, how blessed and genius your ideas start becoming. It's just a level of frequency. And so you got to mind your frequency. You got to care how you feel. How you feel matters. It really matters. It literally matters, actually. How you feel literally matters. Because it's what you're thinking about and how you are focusing upon what you are thinking about is determining not only what you're rendezvousing with, but every impulse that you are getting to act or think, or ideas that are dropping into your head, are all related to that. So if you're on a dark frequency, everything you're matching up with, everything you're lining up with, and all of the ideas that the universe is handing to you because you're resonating with that, are all in that track. That's the only reason. It's not because you're right. It's because you have chosen that frequency, and that's what the universe is going to start giving you. And it's going to confirm every dark, horrible thing you ever thought about human beings. What pigs we are, how low, what depths we can sink to. It'll confirm all of that. But what's the point of that? You know, we are demons beyond description, and we are angels hand in hand with the absolute divine. We are both. And your focus, which way are you focusing? Your inner being is only looking at the good. It's only looking at the love. It's only looking at who people really are. It's not looking at who somebody is being in this moment. It knows who you are. You are a part of me. Your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. And that's kind of the meaning of all things. So, where are we, you might ask, in this discussion? We got a couple more things I like to tag in. Think of, so the key, the secret key to everything happening in your life, the way you want it to unfold, has to do with you paying attention to your personal states of being. And the idea, of course, is to move towards the positive no matter what the conditions around you are. So, and for just a minute, no matter what the conditions around you are, you can be led to a place where you understand that you can feel better about where you are even before anything around you changes. You can look at it from a different angle than the one you're looking at. You can always find a better angle. There is always a better angle. Maybe that's a good way of saying it, because it is all perception. It is all perception. Everything I'm talking to you about is perception. So you don't need to fend me off, as though anything I say is going to contaminate your mind and your thought processes. It's all perception. This is all coming from me, and you can decide whether to let it in or not. But think of these states of being as the specific is your gas. That's putting on the accelerator. Your going specific is an acceleration process. And pulling back to the general is a deceleration process. So if you're in a specific negative thought, we're thinking about thoughts, we're not talking about changing conditions or moving locations, we're just talking about changing the thought track you're on. Because if you're in a negative state, right now your thought track is out of alignment with what you're not looking at what you want. You're angry that you don't have what you want, or you're frightened that you don't have what you want, but you're not looking at what you want. You're looking at the absence of what you want, which is a completely different frequency. So you're looking at something negative, something specific, and the idea to make your physical world go better is to get yourself into a better state of being. You got to understand that that is part of the goal. You're a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, and if you want to be in alignment, in concert with your greater binary self, your source energy aspect that knows that you're all right, you got to be in some positive state, following some positive momentum. You might be in a negative. What do? Pull back to the general. Life sucks. And now you aren't looking at that specific thing that sucked. You just pulled back to a general. Life sucks. Now you can pivot to, well, it doesn't always suck. And then from there, you might be able to step into something that was good. That's all this is, a description of how the specific and the general are the gas and the brakes, right? That's the only reason I have that. What else do I need to show? Very quickly, cymatics. If you have trouble believing that it is a vibrational universe and that you are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, these are cymatic patterns. Cymatics is the study of the relationship between form and vibration. And these were created with a digital device of some sort. You feed a frequency through this device and it produces a pattern. Change the frequency and that pattern changes. Beautiful patterns, actually. Every frequency produces a different pattern. These also are cymatic patterns. Now, originally, when the field was first invented, Hans Jenny would take a granular medium of some sort and sprinkle it on a metal plate, pipe a frequency through the plate, and observe the patterns that appear in the granular medium. That's what you're seeing, upper right, lower left. That's a black plate of some sort with a light colored granular medium on it. As you increase the frequency, the pattern gets more complex. Upper left and lower right, you can see pictures. They are cymatic patterns in nature. We really do live in a vibrational universe. And the other thing to know is that our world is changing. Our human world is changing, and is changing quite fast. I'm an older person, so I've lived on for quite a while. But it's interesting when you're raised, your parents and the people around you, they make you focus very strongly on the material specifics of what's going on right now. This is the way it is. And they ingrain that in you as you're growing up. And then it kind of fixes there. And it's funny because as a human being on planet Earth right now, I'm a boomer, but I'm telling you, there's a bunch of generations that that are coming right after me. You know, there's the Gen X and millennials and Y and Z and Alpha and who knows, all the different generations, all these different uh, sets of beings that were born into this world and see it their way. You know, they were not taught the history that I was taught. They were not taught the meanings the way I was taught. Now it's interesting. If I'm not flexible, turns out that I might be a boomer. I hope I'm not, but I might be an older person operating on the assumption that the world is or ought to be what I was taught that it was at the moment when I was growing up, when it doesn't have a prayer of being that anymore because it's changing so fast. Now, some of the patterns from the past are still in place, but a lot of it has changed. And it's sort of like look at these cymatic patterns. When you go from one frequency to another, there's a moment where neither pattern is really all that clear. Elements of both are kind of laying there on the plate, neither one of them fully formed, and it can look like chaos. But it isn't really. But if you're identifying with the world of form, and you have affixed to forms that are passing, that are not sustainable, that are not in alignment, then you might be feeling a little bit nervous about your position, and you might be feeling in your nervousness, in your threat, you might be lashing out, you might be fighting with the world. I do believe that if we were not on fossil fuels, then people like Vladimir Putin wouldn't have any power at all. The reason that he has the power that he has is he controls a great deal of energy, of fossil fuels. And his ability to keep doing what he does and living the way that he does and pushing around his global ambitions is because we are not on source energy as our main energy source. And that, at the end of the day, that is my main point. Let's get off fossil fuels. My other point is that we are dreaming this into place. So pay attention to how you feel, you know. Um, Follow your bliss. It's very important. Follow your bliss. Don't follow your nightmare. I usually bring up this at this time, the five kleshas. These come from Buddhist philosophy. They are considered to be the root causes of all suffering, of all sorts, all of the ways that human beings are wicked and destructive and cruel and out of alignment and unhappy about things. They all come from this. They come from a misunderstanding of who we are. Actually, the way I see it, identifying with an imaginary self, I see that more as overly identifying with your meat based self, which right there, meat, do you know what can happen to meat? And if that's what you believe that you really are, and that's all that you believe that you are, then I would be frightened here too. But frankly, You are source energy. You are the quantum field. You are Planck's. You are the Planck field, and you are a field phenomenon. You are not just yourself. You are integrated with and interacting with all the rest of the universe. And how are you doing that? How are you focusing? Are you are you paying attention to how you feel? Do you care how you feel? Do you think that you need to sacrifice yourself for all the rest of the world, and so how you feel doesn't matter? Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. How you feel matters. How you feel is the beginning of all things, and everyone getting in touch with their own inner machinery, caring how they feel, and operating from higher frequencies. If you don't care how you feel, then I know that you are getting impulses from chaotic places. And so what you say can't be trusted, and your ideas are bad, and they don't mesh well with others. They aren't at the win win position, they're at the I win, you lose position. And that's not the way to play this game, right? So I'm coming up to an hour and 45 minutes, so I think that that's enough. I think I've covered all my points too. I do believe that our better understanding of source energy and ourselves will bring us to everything that we want in this world. All of our dreams come true, all of our happily ever afters. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought, and then I won't be back making any more videos until the end of this month. But my final thought is we all create our own unique reality within this one common one that we all share. We are dreaming this common reality into place. Let's learn how it works so that we can stop nightmaring it into place instead. And until next time, may the source be with you. Amen.